What is up, everyone? Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Game Cast. Typically, this is where I introduce myself and my co hosts and any special guests that we have on the show. Before I do that, though, I want to talk about some issues that's happening overseas, just briefly. And I want all the onus to be on me. If I say something wrong, yeah, send all of that, you know, fervor my way. All right. Although this is a joint effort, that being the game cast, and my co host doesn't need my protection, I'll always act as a shield to my family and friends, and black women especially. Basically, if I get any of this wrong, hit me up. Number one, what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is wrong. The way our media is covering it is wrong. This isn't a religious issue or even a. Actually, it doesn't matter. Even if it was a religious issue, this would be wrong. This is territorial. This is a territorial issue. The Palestinians are being killed, silenced, removed from their homes, bombed, etc. And we're doing a very poor job of recognizing their plight. Now, I'm not the best person to explain what is going on or why you should care, but I can point you to a person who can help in that regard. Rami Ismail, the Rami, THA underscore RAMI on Twitter. He's been doing a great job of explaining why we should care, what is actually going on, and I think you should follow him. I think he can properly articulate what's going on. Um, now, I'm not the. Oh, wait, I already said that. Sorry. It's a Thursday, folks. I apologize. Lastly, I wanted to say this too because this has been bothering me a lot. White people, not all white people, but some of y'all, I know you're upset about the media, content creators, people in gaming, people in general who aren't really speaking about this. And I feel you. I totally understand. However, I need you to chill with the condemnation on Twitter, on IG, Facebook, wherever you are. I need you to chill for a bit because some of you were super quiet when the world was screaming Black Lives Matter or Stop Asian Hate. A lot of you were quiet. And I would assume that you were quiet because you didn't know what to say. Some of you even just gave lip service. You know who you are. The thing is, though, we saw you. We still see you. And you've been given grace. I think you should give people a little grace here. Because I promise you, your black friends, coworkers, family members, even, all gave you grace during that time that the world was protesting. And hell, even long before that. Uh, yeah, just
Mhm.
chill on all of the condemnation before someone pulls your card. This isn't about being
Mhm.
special, getting a ton of likes, fake clout. No. Or it's just to make yourself feel better about being on the right side of whatever. It's not that time. It's really never that time, but it's definitely not that time right now. We don't need that. Understand that some people feel that they can't articulate, they don't know exactly what's going on, and like me, might not have a platform that they can speak on in this regard. So understand that, and also some people don't speak on Twitter about these things just in general. That's not what they do. So coming at them like, oh, you're horrible because you're not covering A, B, and C, you don't know what goes into that. You don't know what, you don't know all the details essentially. For everyone who's not speaking or who even are speaking and maybe got some things wrong, you don't know. Just chill. Pump your brakes. All right. But yes, my main points. Israel is in the wrong. We are not
Mhm.
doing a good job, and by we I mean the U.S. And I think Rami Ismail is a dope person to go talk to if you are if you need information. All right, check his Twitter page. He's been tweeting about all of this stuff. I think since I've known him, honestly, like all of this type of stuff, he's been
Mhm.
tweeting about it and being very a good source of information online. All right. I just want to say all that. And again, if I said something wrong or possibly offensive, send that to me, just me, I have no problem dealing with that. Okay? Okay. All right. With that being said, I am Kenny and I'm with my co-host Tess,
Hello, everybody.
and we have two special guests. Well, Jamie's not really special anymore. He's kind of been here, right?
Jam.
Wow.
Yeah,
He's
Jamie's
family.
yeah, he's not
Goodbye.
he's not special. He's not special. But we do have a dope guest with us as well. Janet Garcia.
Hey, what's up?
We are
Janet.
so I've been looking forward to this podcast, not just because of the topics that we're talking about, but also because of who we're gonna have on the cast. Um, there's a lot that kind of happens in the Twitterverse, and I
Hmm.
look for like-minded people or people who are even not from my point of view, just speaking on things in a very, I guess, logical, inclusive, intelligent way. And Janet usually pops up. Like there's
Oh,
something
thanks.
going on, and I'm like, man, I really want to say something. And I look at my feed, and Janet pops up, and it's like, oh, she just said everything I wanted to say. Like that was, and she did it really in a concise way, and I'm not even gonna tweet anymore. That was awesome. That was great. So I really wanted to like speak with you about a bunch of things. Um, and so I'm very happy that you're able to join us tonight or today. Yeah, tonight. Um, and we get able to chat a little bit and just talk about some of the issues or some of the things that we've been noticing around the world. But before we get into all that stuff, I want to hear about you guys this week. Is there anything that's happened this week? Anything interesting? I know for me, it's not really what happened this week, it's the things that are coming. For instance, I saw the Venom trailer, the for the
Hmm.
second movie, and I'm looking forward to that. I also saw the new Rugrats trailer, and I felt the way a little bit,
Hmm.
mainly because it's not my Rugrats. But then I realized it doesn't have to be my Rugrats. My kids will probably like it, and then I can have something to watch with them because I've shown them the older Rugrats and they like it a lot, but it's also me and my nostalgia, like here, take it, versus something that they've kind of grew up with themselves, and so I'm looking forward to the new Rugrats. Also, it gave me a reason to have Paramount Plus because other than that, there's really no reason. I mean, there's Frasier. Frasier's dope, but for the most
Right.
part, there's really no reason to have this app right now. Um,
No.
so with the new, I think it comes out tomorrow, Friday. Um, the new Rugrats. I'm gonna show them and see if they like it. Hopefully, it's good. But my week has been anticipation. I've also saw
Mm.
images from the new He-Man show that's coming to Netflix. Looks dope. I'm not sure if it's tied to um, what is the name of the She-Ra? I'm not sure if
Zero.
it's tied to that,
Mm-hmm.
but it looks really great. Um, so yeah, all of my stuff is like in the future. That was basically my week, looking towards things that are coming out. Um, and being super excited. What about you, Tess? Well, how was your week?
This week was trash. Like,
Okay.
it's Thursday, and I don't know. I just feel like I was really, 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 really working really hard this week. And then all the stuff that's going on in this world is really trash too. So, yeah, it's been kind of a trash week. First of all, I want to thank Kenny for actually, saying what he said and standing as a shield. Y'all come at me, bruhs. Like, come at me. Okay? The US is being POSs right now. And that's how I feel about that. And has been for a long time. So I'm gonna speak a little bit on this issue that we're having because it's not a little issue. It's huge and it has been for some time now. Um I remember, was it when forgot which the soccer player was. Was it Rodrigo? Whatnot,
Possibly.
what's his name? Yeah, when he took off the jersey and he was like, I can't keep your jersey because like the soccer players they'll trade jerseys or whatever after a match or something. He's like, I can't take it because I can't um basically, elevate a country that I know is oppressing people.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, he used this platform on a really, really large scale to let people know. And people have been doing that for so long. And what ends up happening is a lot of times when people speak up in protection or in favor of Palestine, all of a sudden we're all anti-Semitic. And that's BS. And I'm so tired of that narrative. I'm really over it. It really needs to stop. And I think that there are times when I have pussyfooted around that as well being in situations where I know that I am employed by somebody who is Jewish and feels a certain type of way, and it should never be like that. You should be able to be like, "Hey, this is wrong, wrong is wrong," and be able to kind of be upfront and stand up for what you believe in. And I know that for a long time, obviously, I was born and raised in the US, that I was fed the wrong information, the US information, and that's BS. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the narrative. It's ridiculous. It's ethnic cleansing. It's literally robbing. Like, I mean, everything is theft in
Right.
this situation and murder. And I remember watching Benjamin Netanyahu, like growing up and stuff, and watching him on TV and everything. And I remember one time one of my friends was like, "That man's evil," and I was like, "Really? I didn't." And and just and anyway, I'm kind of babbling, but the point is, I remember really, really, truly believing at one point that I was like, "Oh, Hamas is always using children's shields and da 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 and all this kind of stuff." And it was in college when I was actually taught different by there was a group at our school that was like very pro Palestine and was trying to get people to be like, hey, Palestine needs you and needs your help and support. So again, I'm really tired of the way that the United States and other like colonial style countries are supporting what has been happening in Palestine for the last whatever 70 years. It's BS. It's not okay. It's not cool. But the United States continues to fund Israel. And this is just terrorism at this point. And I'm over it. I'm tired of it. And I'm tired about a lot of other things too. My job sucks. That was my week.
All right. Well, I
That's
I I agree. I don't know about your job. I can't speak on that, but I definitely I agree.
It's
Uh,
my day off and I worked and I think
Mm.
I realized today I shouldn't say I realized today, I realized this for a while, but I'm like, I can't keep doing this. I don't have a real life. I'm not getting any younger. I'm just getting older by the day. And it was a beautiful day outside and I didn't even go. I didn't step one foot. I'm still in my pajamas because I woke up this morning at 8:30. Well, I woke up before 8:30, but I sat down at my desk at 8:30 to start working. And I'm ADD. None of this works. And I got yelled at by some new ratchet hood chick at my doctor's office. I was like, what? I literally left my doctor a voicemail telling him to fire this woman because she was horrid. My doctor's supposed to be a safe place. How am I supposed to feel safe if the lady at the desk is harassing me?
it
That
was
was my week.
it's been a
Today.
rough one. It's apparently. So when this week is done, I'm gonna need you to chill. If
Mm,
you can take a day off, please do so. Like a real day,
mm,
not a day where you take off and then you work. Like that's not taking off. We're gonna talk about that
mm.
later. Um,
Yes.
but yes, rest and relaxation. I want that for you in the future. Um,
Thank you.
and hopefully, not have to talk to ratchet nurses. Um,
Yo, can that be her name, Ratchet Nurse?
that no, that can't be her name. Uh,
Aww.
Janet, how was your week?
Well, it's a tough act to follow. I think it was all right. Whenever anyone asks me, like, "Oh, how was your day?" or "How was your weekend?" or "How was your week?" literally every event that happened just goes blank for a few moments, and I have to like reload in all the memories. Take from that what you will, but it was solid. I mean, I'm constantly trying to like pick up what I'm working on and what I'm doing, and like I always have these goals, and then it's like, okay, let's get back into the groove of this thing. This is the first week in a while that I've started waking up early again after realizing that not waking up early doesn't serve me well. So I've been getting up a little bit earlier, like around 7 a.m., just trying to get like, my piano practicing in, get my content out, trying to like really dedicate to the projects I do have and let go of the ones that I haven't gotten to and may never really finish and just letting those be done instead of constantly on my to-do list. Like that's something I'm kind of been working on. Other than that, a couple of things I'm looking forward to as well. I'm in a weird spot where I have my vacation coming up this week, which is exciting. But then
Ooh.
there's also like Mass Effect's coming out and like Subnautica Below Zero is coming out. But then like so it's one of those things where it's kind of weird to like leave as soon as like two like sizable or notable games come out. But
Right.
you kind of always plan around like all of the industry all of the time, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But overall, it's been pretty good. And today's an interesting day because normally I have this day free of content, but I had, I'm on here now, and right before this, I was on the MinMax channel streaming. So it's been an interesting Thursday in that I normally like don't have it set up this way, but at the same time, like it's been nice having a little bit of more built-in flexibility to be able to drop in and do stuff like this when it makes sense. And I'm excited to be here. It's gonna be cool to talk to people in more than like a few characters online. Because Kenny, I've known you, I feel like forever, like literally
Right,
maybe like 3 years or something.
right. I think I followed you right before you got onto IGN. No, actually before that, I think.
Probably like a year because you were like in the like there's like a in my mind like a freelance class of 2018 or some shit, and
Right.
like you're in that like bucket of like like you and the other dope people. I don't even have to like necessarily name them, but
Right.
there's like this kind of all the freelancers sort of know each other, and you can tell because we all retweet each other's work all the time, and even when we go to outlets, we're still like retweeting each other's work because that's just the culture of supporting other writers and creators. But yeah, like I've known you for like a really long time, but I've never. I think this is the first time I'm hearing your voice outside of watching your streams. So yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and
We're happy to have you.
this is dope. Just being able to collaborate with a lot of different people through freelancing has been really dope as well. And actually has given me a lot of perspective on different things. Jamie, your week. I know you've been playing Resident Evil like I have.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. So the week started like there wasn't a lot that happened, but the things that happened were bullet points.
Oh,
Resident
word.
Evil was great. I got through that. But crazy thing was started on Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday I was off because I got my second COVID shot. So
Oh, nice.
that was great. So really close to not having to deal too much with it anymore and having to worry about it less. Um, but on my way to the doctor's office, I live in a very, very rare but very red part of New York, and
Yeah.
I saw my first Trump 2024 bus already.
Oh my god.
Ew. I would have just thrown up.
Already. The problem is my family leans in that direction, so it's an awkward situation every time I see that.
I think.
And that was
Oh, sorry.
that
Go
was
ahead.
that was just a crazy start to the week. So the second I did that, it was instant facepalm. I was like, I don't want to hear the words that are about to come out of these people's mouths.
Well,
And yeah, so it
you
was that COVID shot, sleeping for the most part, because that COVID shot, for some reason, the first one and the second one took me out.
Yo, twinsies.
I was asleep for like 10 hours a day. I woke up to eat, and then I don't remember anything else.
I'm pretty sure you got a third COVID shot somewhere in there too. You just don't know it. They just needed to make sure.
fam, did you? I think you tweeted that, Jamie, where the woman accidentally gave someone like 6 doses of a COVID shot.
Oh yes, that it was
No.
hilarious.
That
Like
it's
No.
that's so bad. That's
it
so
it was
bad.
the meme. She took that. She got the 6 doses, and someone put a meme of like Vegeta powering up. That shit was hilarious.
That's
Um,
that's rough.
It's over 9,000 shots. Like, no.
Fam,
well,
how does
besides that, the COVID shot and seeing that interesting truck. Yeah, I'm just hyped for it tonight because the um Guilty Gear Strive beta is up again. So I'm gonna spend some time playing that, and then directly after the J. Cole album drops, and I'm gonna listen to that 2 or 3 times. So yeah.
awesome? Good stuff. You were telling me about some of your family's leanings a little bit, and I always think that that's so odd. Like, spoiler alert, we're all people of color here. So that's just an odd
Oh,
thing to me.
really?
I know, right? I found out yesterday. Nah, that's just odd to me. Like it's really, really odd. Um,
There's there's a reasoning to it that I won't get
right.
I won't talk about here just because it's long, it's annoying.
We ain't got
People
time for
hate
all that, is what you're
yeah,
saying?
yes. But there's a reason for it. I kind of understand it, but you're still stupid. Like
Right.
understand the stupid.
It's been interesting. It's been an interesting couple of years, I'll say that.
Mm.
Um, With that being said, everyone's had some interesting stuff that happens this week. Um, we're praying for you, Tess. Outside of that, though, we did have some things that we wanted to talk about, and one of them being a dope uh, endowment that was brought about, I want to say last week, last Thursday. I'm actually pulling up an article from USA Today. Shout out to Mike Snyder for this article. But he wrote that the USC Games at the University of South Carolina, Southern California, I can read, in Los Angeles, announced Thursday it has established the Gerald A. Lawson Endowment Fund for Black and Indigenous Students, an initiative to increase minority representation in games and tech. Recipients will be known as the Lawson Scholars. Now, this is dope. If you don't know who
Hmm.
Jerry Lawson is, he's a black engineer who helped kickstart home game consoles. He was able to help develop the cartridge, which is basically
Hmm.
how consoles work. Well, I mean, we have disc now, but essentially, when the Ataris and the other systems came out, it was just one box, and that box had
Hmm.
like a game or however many games on that box. uh, he was able to, with the help of a team, was able to make cartridges so that you can have the box, but then also have multiple games being, you know, shifted in and out. So you could play, your Pac-Man, your Galaga, your whatever, all on
Hmm.
one box without having to buy another box, essentially.
Right.
And so this is actually really dope. This was done in partnership with Take-Two Interactive. Um, and they've actually done a lot of this type of thing in the past where they've set up like scholarships or funds or programs to kind of help people who aren't represented a lot in gaming,
Hmm.
or just in like even like the behind the scenes. So like in development, game development, stuff like that. We're kind of absent, and so they've been doing a lot of work in this area to kind of put people on who might not have the opportunity to do so. And so,
Right.
for instance, they worked with I want to say Girls Can Code. No, Black Girls Code,
Black Girls Code. Yeah.
Games for Change, Girls Make Games, Gay Gaming Professionals, um, and a bunch of others. And they also designed a game design scholarship program in New York City's. I can't say the name of the school, but it's a School of the Arts. This was back in 2019. So Take Two, shout out to them. Um, and this particular college or campus for making this endowment. I think this is dope. I think it's cool that more and more people are hearing about the black people or people of color who are doing some really amazing things in
Yeah.
this field. I like that more people are going to be given an opportunity to further the culture of further gaming. Um,
Hmm.
More people are going to be able to tell their own stories now.
Hmm.
Hopefully, that's the goal, right? Because a lot of these companies are still they're still headed by old white guys. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's the goal, though, to get more people into development, more people into games writing, more people into all these different spaces, so that we can have a little bit of a little bit of diversity, but like good diversity, not like you know token black guy. That doesn't work out for me.
Right. Or,
um,
like the kind of diversity that writes Mulan, which was literally just a bunch of white people who wrote a movie and hired a bunch of Chinese people to act in it.
yeah, yeah, or like the recent that's a whole nother discussion. But essentially, I am
Totally.
happy. I'm happy about this. I'm also happy that people get to learn a little bit um, about Jerry
Jerry Lawson. Hmm.
because he's not. Although, like for instance, there was a few articles up during Black History Month. There was a few articles on IGN and a couple other places that talk about him. Every now and then he comes up. I want to say he was on a documentary not too long ago, but for the most part, no one really talks about him, and that's
Hmm.
unfortunate because he did a lot for gaming. Like there would be no Nintendo, or at the very least, it would have come like years later
Yeah.
if he didn't do what he did. And because before then, everybody thought that there's no way you can get like microprocessors and other things onto little cartridges. Like you just couldn't do
Right.
it. And he's like, yeah, I got you. Don't even worry about it. Obviously, he didn't say that. I'm
Hmm.
paraphrasing, but that's kind of what happened. And
No,
because of
no,
it,
I know what he said. He said, "Hold my beer."
right, right. Um, and so he was able to do that. And so just being able to hear more about him and things that he's done and people like him is a boon for everybody who's in gaming. Like I just think you should know. Like knowing your history is awesome, right? And then not being kind of pushed to the side because people are quick to kind of, he wasn't there for this, or really it was that one guy in the back and he just kind of, no, no, no. He was very integral in the process, okay? And then also the fund itself. But enough from me. What do you guys think about that?
Super excited. Good move, NYU. Good move.
Yeah, I think too, like, when it comes to stuff like this, college and school in general is always behind on everything because that's the nature of like stuff moves slowly when it's through establishments. Sometimes for good reasons, like checking, to make sure like stuff aligns with curriculum. I have like a background in education. Those who know me may know that I taught for like a year of high school, and I have a degree in secondary education. So schools are always behind on everything, which can sometimes be unfortunate. It's nice to see stuff kind of catch up and also support marginalized creators, developers, people in the space. I think too, you bringing up like the historical component is interesting because even though statistically speaking, I think marginalized groups have been underrepresented for like a really long time in pretty much every notable field, because that's, we don't have to go too far to see a lot of examples of not being represented in different industries. But I think a lot of times when we remember like the history of a lot of these industries, we know it from like a very white and or male and or cisgender perspective, even though there have been, people of color, white women, queer folks like in this the entire time. So it's especially cool when you can like highlight those people who were like, no, they were there, they've been there forever. Like so many of these groups that are, unfortunately not often met with like welcoming vibes into the space have been there forever and will continue to be there. And I always find that stuff really inspiring. Like for me, obviously I relate to this on a different level because I'm still not like part of the Black community, but always knowing the people that share parts of my identity that have come before, I always find that really inspiring because it can be a hostile space, I think, or like there's a lot going on in the space of games, but it's always cool to see people that like have made it better from the beginning, are still doing that work, and the idea of being part of that legacy of being out there and representing and making a difference, and just I always kind of take solace in the fact that like my presence existing in the space is doing something for people. And even though it's for like kind of an inherently negative reason, I still think that's really cool, and that always kind of makes things special to me when I'm out here doing content or just being involved in games in general.
Right. I've noticed that. Um, where people kind of message you or at least or tweet that they were happy to see you on, kind of funny, or some of the shows that you were on over at IGN, and it's like, oh, there's someone that looks like me. I think a
Yeah,
lot,
that's always so sweet.
yeah, I think a lot of the gaming, well, a portion of the gaming community doesn't really recognize that because they've always seen themselves, and so they don't really understand why it's a big deal. Um, but yeah, it's kind of like I remember talking to like my daughter about certain video games or because she's 10, she's getting into more and more gaming and looking at things that I like to look at, so like whatever is anime, cartoons, or movies or whatever, and she's asking for basically black superheroes. Like I would like to see more of me, essentially is what she's saying. And because I know them, I can list off like a ton of people, like, oh, you can see this person, this person, this person, this person, but then I realized that there's no media for them. Like outside of Storm and a few others, Marvel speaking, there's not a lot of shows that have prominent black characters, and then to a lesser degree, prominent black women characters. Um, I mean, obviously they're there, but it's not like well, like in the X-Men, you have Storm. She's a big deal. Like one of the leaders of the X-Men. And so when my daughter saw her, she's like, "Oh, this is great! Like there's someone who looks like me, uh, who's a big deal, not just like a bystander." So like in all of these things, I'm looking at this more so because I always saw it from my perspective, but having children, it's like, oh wow, and I have three daughters. It's like dude, where are all the black women? Good grief. Like, um, and so like having anything that is kind of around this realm of, yeah, we're going to uh help you do more, help you see yourself more is always a plus for me. Definitely. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, going to like the USC fund, that is great. That's the beginning of actually seeing some type of change where there isn't just a stereotypical image of like a black guy or Spanish guy in a game. And I just would love to see something where they don't have a Spanish guy that either isn't Mexican or part of the drug cartel. I would love to see something like that eventually, and I think this is the first step for that.
Yeah,
So
I remember you telling me
yeah,
about that with what you said is you said nearly the all the ones that you see are usually Mexican or from Mexico, and then
yeah.
you said you rarely see any Puerto Ricans.
You rarely there's maybe a handful, and not even a full hand of Puerto Ricans in gaming. Um, but they're either Mexican, some imaginary Spanish place that speaks Spanish, then that's it. It's just
Ooh, those are the
imaginary.
funnest places.
So it's that, or there's something that's just super stereotypical, like
Hmm.
criminal, drug cartel, or just straight up annoying, or
Yeah.
clean, or can't speak anything properly. And
Like,
like that's all they ever show, and I need that to change a little bit.
Yeah.
no, we need that change a lot. We need that
A
to
lot.
yes, a lot, a lot. But yeah, hopefully things like this will kind of bring that about because we'll have
Hmm.
the goal is to get more people in these spaces at the higher, tier where they can kind of say like, hey, this is really stereotypical. This is kind of bad. He's saying a lot of Spanish that doesn't make sense. Like people don't say this. Like we don't. Why would you do that? Like you'll have people in their corner that kind of tell them, or who will be, development leads who just won't have that problem at all. So shout out to them. Shout out to Take Two. I know we kind of give them a lot of flack for some other things, but at least in this sense, they're doing some good. And with
Yeah.
their other programs that we mentioned as well. Um, the
Yeah.
next topic we want to talk about is overworked, which Tess, you actually hit on that with
Yo.
working on your day off. Um,
Yo.
in our
This
space,
gotta stop.
it does have to stop. Now, before I go though, was this something that your boss asked you to do, or was this like a voluntary thing?
No, it was voluntary, but I think one of the issues is volunteering my time off, and not just me personally. I think there's a culture and there's a general lots of people who do this, but offering up my free time to do work that I can't complete during the week because I'm not supported, because
Yes.
we are, as they would say in Hamilton, outgunned and outmanned. There's not enough people to do the job that's required of us. And there's no way that more people will be pulled in to help assist. I mean, to to make this job more functional, or make everything more efficient, because that would cost more money on the company. So, learn how to run a retail store with two employees that actually show up, and and also still make, a payroll, and still sell as much you're supposed to do, and still da 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 da, and still do this in a recession, and da 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 da. I'm over it. I'm over this idea that that product can literally be brought out of thin air, like we're all fairy godmothers. Because if I was a fairy godmother, I would have had two husbands by now, two divorces, and all of the money of Bill Gates.
Why divorce though? Like why? Like,
Because if I can get all of that money, why stay married? Like, I'm
cause
just
you
saying,
love the person? Like,
well,
Mm,
okay.
you can
I
love money too.
might love the
This is
person.
all
I might
hypothetical.
It's
So
hypothetical. I might love the person, but what if I could love the person, divorce them, get the money, love somebody else, marry them, get the money too after that divorce, and then marry somebody else and be happy? Third time's a charm. I'm just saying that there are billions involved. You can't tell me that you wouldn't do some things for billions.
I look, there will not be a OnlyFans for me. That's just it. I no, no.
Kinda,
But
no,
I
free money.
understand. No, fam, not for me.
Billions?
I
Billions?
I'm working out still, so I'm not where I need to be. No, but like, yeah, it's rough. It's rough having to feel like you have to do something on your day off. The whole
Yeah, and
idea
that's
that
how I feel.
that's rough. That's really, and unfortunately, we have little say in that. Like,
Yeah.
there are times where we can say like, you know what, I'm not working, and be,
Mhm.
confidently say, nope, find someone else. I took this day off for a reason, et cetera, et cetera. But depending on your field, depending on how long you're there, depending on any leverage you might have or not have, you might not be able to do that. There was times
No.
where I think I tweeted this, where when I was working at T-Mobile on
Mhm.
the as we were in the call center, and the way getting time off works there is that they have like all the time is shut down, and 6 months before the time that you need to take off, they open up the floodgates. So like if you want to take
Mhm.
off for Christmas, you have 6 months prior to do so, but they don't want people to just take off like every day. So they'll shut it down and say you can't take off at all until this day. Once the day passes, you everybody can like take as many days off. Like you can go and pick your days 6 months from now, right?
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that could happen when you're not working. Like if my day was, I actually had a day off. They opened the
Mhm.
floodgates. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be on a Monday. They did it that Friday, and a ton of time was taken. When I went that Monday to take time off from my wedding, which I had been talking about forever with everyone because I
Because it's
was
a
excited.
wedding.
Exactly. I had all the PTO saved up, and they were like, "Well, unfortunately, there's no more. Like the day you want to take off, you can't." This was far in advance. This was like in April. They're like, "You can't. Everyone's taking that week off. Easter's right around there, and you just can't take off." I'm like, I'm getting married. What do you mean? Like
Mhm.
everything's locked in. We've paid everyone. Like I can't. I'm not telling my wife I'm not. Look, I'm not going to be here. Is what I'm saying. You need to fix it.
Classic.
You need to fix it with whoever you need to fix it with. I will not be
Fun.
here. And thankfully, another manager, someone who I was friends with before I even got the job, was like, "Don't worry about it. I will have someone cover, or basically I'll fix it for you because it's not fair." Like everyone knew that I'm getting married, and it was like, well, they kind of just threw their hands up because there was
Mhm.
no magical time to take off, because with the call centers, if there's a spike in people calling, like maybe their cell phones, like it's like there's a storm and it knocks out a cell tower, so everyone's
Yeah.
calling in to get new phones or get stuff fixed or whatever, then it's like an all hands on deck. They have to pull everyone back. And if you took a day off, that could be kind of rough because on everybody else. So they try to mitigate that by not allowing you to just take off whenever. But honestly, I had saved up so much time because I'm like, I have to get my wedding off, that
Mhm.
I didn't expect them to be like, no, regardless of what was going on. Um, and that's, I could have lost my job, which would have been bad since I was getting married right after.
Yeah,
Like,
you know.
but I was like, I'm not coming in. I'm not doing this. Um, and that's
Yeah.
very unfortunate that an employee would kind of put you in that situation. It's a whole nother ball game when it comes to like game journalism, freelancing, because at the very least with T-Mobile and in some places, everyone understands that you need to take off.
Mhm.
In our field, or on this side of the world, I should say, there's this weird thing where you're almost expected to do more. You're expected to work,
Mhm.
work, 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 work. You're expected to, look, you go into the office, in this case, working from home, me, and you write all day, and then you get
Mhm.
a game and you have to review it, so you have to go and play it on your own time. You don't get paid for that. And then if there's a deadline, let's say like, I don't know, Capcom sends Resident Evil, but it's like, 2 days before it actually releases, and the website still wants you to get that review done, you have to work throughout the weekend. And we spoke about that too, in
Mhm.
previous casts, where someone like broke down and was crying because they didn't sleep the whole weekend. But then it's like almost it's expected. It's just expected that you are to work and burn yourself out
Right.
doing this job. And it's even I think it's even worse for freelancers because there's this idea that like if I say no, they won't call me back for another gig. So
Yeah.
you end up
Yeah, it's
working.
so much worse for freelancers.
It's
Like
crazy.
personally, from having like had a staff position, I have no like I can very confidently say that I worked less as a staff member than I did as a freelancer. I
Oh,
still worked a
nice.
lot for sure, but nothing. It will never compare. And like the thing is, when you're a freelancer, you have to be your own boss, which like that's already hard. And then you're trying to break into an industry, so you're trying to like get a lot of gigs, and you're basically just but only people only see you from like their perspective of like working with you for that one company or that one gig. So, if I pick up I used to write news and do guides and do my own content. Like those are all three things that are happening outside of the other one. They're not in conversation, they're not part of it. And of course, anyone can ever at any time turn to you and say, "Well, if you can't do this project, don't take it." But it's like, well, I need to do it because when I need the resume building, I need to build the relationship and I need the money. So I have to take it.
Right.
It's like, so you're like you're very overworked and very underpaid. And I think and that's just the nature of freelancing. I don't know if anyone would have the goal to tell you that that's not, unless they have never really done it. And, you hear these stories from back in the day of people being like, oh, I don't know, I was in college and my friend was like, I'm making a game magazine. And now I've been in the industry for 30 years. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how it works anymore.
It's
So I do
not.
think some people have that very like, have a different background, like a pre always online, you have, that's the other element too. You're like in the modern day for freelancing, you're not just a writer or an editor or whatever, you're also like a social media manager. You're also like doing all these other elements. So it's just an enormous amount of work all the time. And I think one reason that like that crunch continues for a lot of people, even when they develop more established positions, is because that's how you got the job. Like that's a conversation that I would have with like other people all the time, where for me it was really hard to any degree let go of the work habits I had developed as a freelancer, because the work habits I had as a freelancer were toxic habits. And I felt like I got hired as a toxic worker because
Right.
that's what made me special. That's what made me stand out. Like, and it's not from a malicious standpoint from any outlet, I don't think either necessarily, if I'm trying to, I guess, give the benefit of the doubt. But like, the people that shine the brightest are often like burning out. And that's why they're so bright. Like, that's why like, oh, so-and-so gets this done really fast. So-and-so takes direction amazingly. Oh, they did this, they did this other thing. Meanwhile, they're like taking care of so much stuff. So like, of course, when you join any outlet or do any project, you're going to keep doing that because that's what you're used to doing. And it was really difficult for me to any degree, and I wasn't like totally successful in this attempt, but to decide that that wasn't how I was going to be, that I wasn't going to hustle like that. And then there's also that feeling of like, even when you're established, like you're sort of looking over your shoulder, you see layoffs in the industry happen all the time. You want to like get the most of your time there. So you want to pick up extra projects and like, when else you're going to get access to like, I can go to this preview event, I can do this. So there's just like there's a huge hustle and grind culture associated with being in games media and games content creation. And that's just like inherently part of that. And what comes with that hustle culture is a toxic relationship with work in which you are always working all the time. And then you have the people who are like super into it and don't ever complain about it. And they're like, oh no, I love it. Like I'm having a great time. Like I took a vacation, but I just played Persona 5 Royale for like 80 hours and it was awesome. And I'm like, I don't think, and then you're kind of told like, oh, well, they're just different. Like you don't have to be like them. But I'm like, I don't know. Like it kind of feels like I maybe should be like that. Or like, it feels like no one, or a lot of people don't, in my experience, discuss boundaries with games and with work. And I think that kind of adds to like the culture of grinding and always being online and always playing and loving games so much that you're happy to do it, that you'll just do it anyway. And yeah, it's true that like a lot of times there are supportive managers who don't bring down those kind of mandates, but it's that feeling of like, I want to get this job done and get get the job done well. And like what was mentioned earlier, like it doesn't always feel like the time that I have scheduled for work to do that is enough time to get it done in the time that I want to get done and in the way that I want to get it done. And that's probably gonna go on until like the end of time, probably. But yeah, it's a problem, and I don't even mind necessarily that it's. And I said this on Twitter a bunch. I don't even mind that it's a problem. Like I understand it as a problem, and to some degree, I think it is unavoidable. There is no E3 without crunching. Like you're gonna crunch during E3 because it's E3. But my beef is that so many people don't even want to say, yeah, this is a problem we need to work on, or this is worth noting. They're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. You're only doing this because you want to, and like I'm having fun. Like I'm enjoying being like a worker, and I'm like, all right, some of y'all like really throwing it back for capitalism, and no one's even asking you to, and you're like, oh, it's great, I love it here, and I'm like, do you though? Do you? I don't know. It
No.
seems kind of unhealthy.
Wait,
Those people who are all like, I love it here, are also getting a like unlimited supply of Adderall from their employers, clearly, because it just doesn't make any sense. I'm no.
wait,
No.
can we go back to throwing it back for for, for capitalism? That was
Yeah, like
amazing.
people are, and it's, you know, capitalism is such an interesting thing, and I've had a different relationship with it over the years. Like I still very much want to like win the game of capitalism, which a lot of people have given up on, but I'm like, I think I can, you know, hustle my way through somehow. And I come from like, you know, my dad immigrated here in the 80s, and like I do still very much believe in like the magic of dreams and things to a degree, you know, with a hint, with a shot of realism infused in that. But like, yeah, so many people just, I guess, don't acknowledge the ways that capitalism is evil, even when it's not trying to be. Like, you know, it's just like it, and the whole idea of a bottom line is like a little bit like that, right? Like y'all brought up
Yeah,
like the retail space and stuff. Like the reason that, and people and companies always make this complaint, be it retail, be it outlets, be it whoever, be it yourself, if you're, you know, like I talk about being independent, and like I'm not immune to like making myself crunch, and it's something I'm working on and that I try to talk about very publicly, and that I actively work on because I feel like it's necessary. But people always say, "Oh, well, we can't afford to like hire more people because of X, Y, and Z or whatever." But like the reason it's unsustainable to be ethical is because you built your company on not being ethical. Like you weren't ethical from the start, and that's why
exactly.
it's unsustainable to become ethical. And like something that really sucks, like with how most things are built, is most people, and I like talked about this on like Games Daily with Greg in relation to like developers and studios expanding. I'm like the concern is a lot of times when you get more people at a company, that means that there's just more work being taken on. It doesn't mean that like, oh, I have help with my work. No, I mean maybe like a little bit with certain specific projects, but on the whole, that person has their own job, their own tasks, and their own like stuff that they're pulling. And now we're just spread thin, but we're getting more done because we've spread thin across more people. But like that's still being spread thin. You can be like, and I've seen so many people claim that they don't have money for things. I think just too from like an interpersonal element, I think we've all known those people. Maybe it was a friend, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was whoever who said, I can't afford it. And then one day you realize they could, they just didn't want to cut the check.
Exactly. That's and it's and that's so and the problem is multifold. Like not just two, but multi. Because unfortunately, everyone that comes before you is like, this is how I did whatever. One thing that we were doing in because I was invited to be a mentor to like newer writers, and one of the things I would kind of explain is that yeah, there's like an old guard of doing things, and you're going to have to work hard, but at the same time, you don't have to take everything. It's okay. If someone came to you and was like, I need you to do A, B, or C, I would like for you to do A, B, or C. If they saw you that you were talented and that you could write, they're gonna come back. Or if they don't. But you don't have to just accept whatever, um, because that seems to be the like how you just get by. In terms of people writing for free, in terms of people who, there are some sites who kind of prey on newer writers where they'll be like, we want you to do basically the work of an editor, but for pennies. And it's
Mhm.
like you could probably get like five or six people and actually pay them less, and they will all like be okay because they're only doing a little bit of work. But instead, you're going to pay this person a little bit more and then give them a ton of work, and they burn out. There was a job. This is funny. I was up for a job interview recently, and It's for a website. This actually is a company that owns multiple smaller websites, and one of the guys, I guess,
Why do
hit
I feel
me
like I
up.
know what company this is?
You might. He hit me up.
I'm not gonna say what it is, but I
He
feel like I know who this
You,
is.
you probably do. He hit me up. He did DM me and was like, "Hey, I saw some of your guides on IGN. I would be interested in you writing for A, B, and C." So I was like, "Okay, cool. What does the job entail?" And so we kind of spoke. I sent him my resume. We got an interview. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. Let's see how this goes." He's talking to me and he's telling me what my duties would be. Um, and immediately I was like, this is in my head. I'm like, this is not going to work because he wants me to run a site, but he doesn't want to necessarily pay me the amount to run a site. As a person who's ran a site before, it's a lot of work. But I'm thinking, you know what? I'll have writers. I'll be able to commission people. I'll be able to do whatever. I asked him about that, and he's like, no. He's like, we kind of just want you to do it. And I was like, well, I make this already freelancing. I don't know if you can what I mean? Like I'm gonna need a lot more because if I'm gonna do this full time, I can't freelance. What you're asking for is a lot. So we kind of negotiated a bigger price, and he kind of like when I went up to like like thousands monthly, and he was a little rattled, but he was like, all right, you know what, we can we can see. And I was like, all right, so if that's the case, one thing I want to make sure you know is that I've done this before and it's very easy to be burnt out by all the work. Like the deadlines that you want, the things that you're asking me to do. This is also one of the reasons why I'm asking for so much. It would be nice to be able to hire people, like if I can commission work, but if I can't do that, um, yeah, you're gonna have to pay me a lot. And this in and of myself, I'm thinking like I shouldn't take this job anyways, but if I can stop freelancing, this opens up a little bit some other things that I want to do personally. So I was like, maybe, right? So we in the conversation, he hits me up and he's like, all right, unfortunately, we're gonna go with a different person. But if you want to get some feedback on why we didn't pick you, let me know. I'm like, yeah, let's see. Was it the amount of money I was asking for? Because I was asking for a lot. And he was like, no, it was actually you kept mentioning, being burnt out, and he was like, that's probably something you want to avoid. If you're talking to people and you want to get a job like this, you don't want to talk about being burnt out. Maybe if you weren't sure about the job, maybe if you were kind of questioning, but when you're interviewing for it, you don't want to talk about, the workload. And on one hand, I understand that companies do this where if you go to a job interview and you complain about, let's say you go to like a fast food place to like get a job and you complain that you couldn't stand making burgers at Wendy's, but now you're at McDonald's, the guy's going to be like, you know what? You can't work here because you don't like making burgers and we make burgers. I totally understand that. In this case, though, you're saying that I shouldn't be mindful or let on that I'm mindful that this job can burn people out. Why are you hiring someone new? Oh, the last guy left. Why did he leave? Oh, he got burnt out. Oh, okay. So maybe I should.
Comical.
You know what I'm saying? It's weird. It's. I guess he didn't know that I was, and I assumed because I told him I've been writing for like 17 years almost. I'm not. I come with a cost because I don't
Hmm.
need this job. So pay me what you should. And if you're asking for all
Hmm.
these things, honestly, he could have hired multiple people and paid them less and would have gotten by. But the amount that you
Hmm.
were willing to pay me, the fact that I mentioned that, I'm gonna need, like breaks was like a no-go. Like you're gonna pay me more, but not okay. That's odd. And I kind of just left it alone. But it was like that's kind of what you get into when you get into writing. Not every place.
Hmm.
Not every place. I've had some really great experiences. Shout out to my editors over at IGN, and the different places I worked at. Fanbyte, freelancing over there. Dope people to work with. But there are some people who just don't care. On the flip side, I had someone DM me um, about a review. I told him I got, these headphones coming in from IGN and I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit like a strict deadline. He's like, I don't, that's cool. I just want you to review it. Totally different.
Hmm.
Like just totally like throw the the deadline out. But because he knows me and because he trusts my work, he's like, don't
Right.
even worry about it. It's cool. I just want to know that you want to do this and I will pay you to do this. So granted, not everyone is in that position. Not everybody is in Janet's position, but at the same time, you kind of have to come with knowing a little bit of your worth and also knowing what you can and can't do, what you're willing and not
Mm-hmm.
willing to do, because people will push that on you. And then on the flip side, you got to know when it's okay to be like, I'm going to take a day off. That's why I asked you, Tess, was it voluntary, that you went in? And in your sense, it wasn't because you felt like I need to do this to stand out. It was more so you didn't have enough help. But a lot of people do that on the other side because they're like, I just have to do this. I have to be better than everybody else. Yeah and no. You have to stand out, but essentially you can do your own blog at your own pace. If you're going to be writing
Mm-hmm.
like crazy anyways, you can essentially do your own blog, have that as your clips, and then use that to land a big gig. And once you do that, it doesn't really matter anymore. Like, yeah, you
Right.
want to get hired and you want to do more work, but once I got, let's see, Upload and then IGN, it was outside of pitching and people not liking what I pitched, it was very easy to kind of get people to see because I had bigger clips. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to go my route or someone else's route. Essentially, we learned a little bit, and the other freelancers can kind of help you navigate this minefield. But you definitely want to talk about it. You definitely want to get this out and out in the open, because people are really it's not healthy. It's not.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that's kind of what's like, from your story, like listening to it, I'm like, wow, like I'm actually horrible at negotiations. I don't think I've ever really negotiated for anything ever, pretty much at all. I just really struggle with it, and it's uncomfortable for me, which I think it is for a lot of people. And obviously, it's something I need to get better at doing because I'm like out here on my own, and not everyone's gonna just offer me like the rate that maybe they could if out the gate. Which I also think is again talking about the evils of capitalism. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
it's you could argue everyone's doing it because they also have to survive in a capitalistic society. So it's sort of like I guess the ideal goal would be people being as ethical as they can while, conforming to the fact that everyone has to pay a gas bill at some point or
right.
electricity bill or whatever your bills are. But you mentioning like um I hate how much of the onus is on the worker, and I guess that's like a lot what I said in my thread ranting about like taking time off and why I put that on like higher ups, managers, whoever is because like you're asking a lot from people who usually don't have a lot of power, be it
Mm-hmm.
financial or status wise. Like like Kenny, you mentioned being here at like 17 years deep, like that's wild. I have plenty of privilege and cloud and connections at this point where I finally feel like I'm comfortable like existing in the space and not just like I feel like I'm here, and I didn't realize that I didn't feel like I was here until I felt like I was here, and I'm like, oh, I've never actually felt this before. This is kind of wild. Like after IGN, like I felt like fine. Like I felt like I'm here and I'm gonna be here forever. Versus before IGN, I felt like I was there. Like I never said like I was an aspiring writer or any of that stuff, but I was like I felt as if I was still trying to really get in and that I wasn't really present. And I didn't really know that I felt that way until I was kind of over that hill. And I think so many writers and content creators struggle with being on that other side and trying to figure out how to break through, and the idea of trusting that you can do that like without pushing too hard when you see so many other people doing it. It's just it's really difficult to navigate. But I think you bring up a lot of like great points, like the idea of if voicing concerns about work-life balance or something like that makes someone not want to work with you, maybe that's not a good person to be working for.
Right.
And I did, even in my more desperate times, I did try to keep certain lines in check, and I think it's really important for creators and writers to figure out what their lines are. I think for me too, it sounds a little dramatic, but like I think with COVID and everything, uh really putting health in check, which is like the most important thing that we all hopefully have to some degree, like being alive and being here, really makes you realize how not important games are, or my career really is. I'm like, I kind of really, I don't want to. I think I spend a lot of time thinking about how I claim that my family and my partner are the most important things in my life, and yet the one thing I know I'll drop everything for is like a new review or a new game or my stream or whatever it is. And I try to remind myself how often I say no to the people around me when they want to like hang out, because that doesn't matter. It doesn't have a deadline. But this other thing, oh no, we gotta like, I gotta queue this up now. I have to download it. I have to get playing. And I've really tried over the years to pull back and try to make it so that my actions actually align with what I say matters to me the most. And that's been something I've been working on, where it's like, all right, maybe this thing doesn't get done, and maybe that's fine. And really just focusing on like myself first, and then scaling up. Like when I went independent, my friend Jared had mentioned like take time to just schedule out how you're going to be you before you do content, because you're never going to want to schedule it in the inverse. Like no one makes a content plan and then they're like, okay, let me throw in like some yoga. Like you're not going to do that. Like you're going to want to do it in the other direction, because yeah, it is just so hard to like navigate the space, considering all the things that are, swirling around.
It's rough. And I have to like thank my wife for a lot of my balancing. I still
Mm-hmm.
overwork. I still totally overwork. But
Oh,
um,
same, right? You get from this
but
big place of like, oh, this is what you do. It's like, oh, I'm like really tired.
yes, yeah. I think we spoke, Tess, a few podcasts ago about how when my second child was born, I
Mm-hmm.
actually ended up in the hospital because I wasn't sleeping. Um,
Yeah.
just with her, and then trying to run my own site. I think, and then this was right after E3. November came around, the new consoles, new stuff, and trying to get all that content done, and just not sleeping, and thought I was having a heart attack, but I was having
Right.
I think I was having a panic attack, and it was
Yeah.
just bad. And so like my wife would be like, one thing that she says is like, or I was like, I would tell her like, once this is done, then I can do this. And she reminds me like, this stuff never ends. Like there's always a new video game. There's always a new
Mm-hmm.
conference or a new whatever happening that you need to talk about. So you just need to stop. And I'm like, huh, that's that makes sense.
What? Stop.
Cause and even with that, there's always gonna be another game. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't stream Mass Effect this week, there's gonna be another big game eventually. We can make up
Right.
content there. And granted, not everyone's in that space, but I'm just saying, if you can, think about what you can and can't do, and what does it mean when you stop? What happens?
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where you are in your finances and things of that nature, I know that's a big part of it, but I'm talking about the parts outside of finance. I'm talking about the drive to continue to finish or to continue to do whatever. Understand, like, there will be another video game. There will be another conference. There will be another E3. You will have stuff to talk about. It's not going anywhere. It will be all right. You know. Um, but yeah, it's a struggle. It's a real struggle. I hope people are in a better place. There's a lot of different programs and things of that nature. Like people are trying, especially now with COVID, people are trying to have this conversation, and they're trying to help newer writers. Um, to kind of like navigate this stuff. So I'm looking forward to things improving. On the other hand, I know capitalism. So yeah. Uh, moving on to our last topic, which is actually one of my the main thing that I wanted to talk about today, and that was representation. I know we talked about it a little bit, uh, from the endowment and whatnot. But this is a little bit different. Looking at a article from Ash Parrish, shout out to her. She is amazing. She wrote an article saying, or titled, "Sorry, your cis white woman protagonist isn't progressive." And so I read this. I also read Janet your tweets after this, and I wanted to talk about this because this kept coming up. I mean, obviously this comes up a lot with us in general, but this kept coming up recently because of, like Jamie, you were saying how certain groups are depicted in video games, how you know having a certain protagonist is like was a big deal, but it's not really to us because we don't see ourselves, and how certain people feel like that's a gimme. Like, oh, you have a woman, that's a protagonist, so be okay with that. Like, don't worry about that she's not black or she's not whatever. Like, just be okay. Be fine that Returnal has a woman protagonist, and don't complain about anything else. And what happens is we get silenced again, but in a different way. We get silenced in a, we gave you some crumbs type of thing. And honestly, it doesn't really do much. It doesn't really move the needle in any great way. And the results are these type of awesome articles, and then us talking about it and people kind of looking at us weird as if wanting to see ourselves is an odd thing.
Right.
Um, and I don't understand
Right.
that. And so I kind of wanted to bring that up, and especially with you, Jamie, because you've been wanting to talk about Miles Morales for a long time and what that meant to you when that game came out, the Spider-Man Miles Morales, and in terms of being somewhat represented in a video game. And when I saw Janet kind of tweeting about it, I was like, "Oh, this is perfect. I can merge these two, right?" Um, Jamie, how, first of all, you read the article, right?
Yeah, I read the article. The although I want to say the overall idea of it, definitely agreed. Although there's like one or two points I can nitpick at, but not really important.
Got you.
Um, yeah. Um, although I do have to say, holy shit, nobody does anything but look at the picture and read the title. Because a lot of the stuff about this article is just asinine. The stuff people are saying, like nobody bothered to read the first two paragraphs. It's annoying.
Yes, we definitely get that a lot. But for the most part, you agree with her sentiments.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with it. It's just like I said, it was just nitpicks. Um, like the maid costume. Like I don't know if I'm the only one. I don't have any issue with it whatsoever.
Got
Because
you.
it's just that's known that MMA fighters use cornrows. I mean, your hair is in your face, stuck against your head. You can't really pull it. Like that's the reason is there. It's not. I don't think it was for any other aspect other than that.
Got you. So in that sense, before I get into the miles, let me point on that because that was a big thing too. When that was announced or shown, that people were like, "This is an MMA thing, MMA thing." The problem with that is that Overwatch and Blizzard they haven't put a black woman in the game yet, like
Yeah,
at all.
I got that.
And they put a
I,
hairstyle that before MMA was a thing is a black hairstyle. Let's be
yeah,
clear
fair enough.
on where that comes from. It works for them. They're able to use this. Cool. That's no beef there. And actually the skin itself, there's no beef. But it didn't originate there. It's similar to how certain words and phrases are used by black people and then other people use it and then those words change and then people have get upset at those new words, but that's not exactly what they were. They weren't intended to be that way. They kind of get pulled. And so, having cornrows, dreads, certain hairstyles have always been synonymous with black people, with people from Africa, with people from different places. And something gets popular, someone does it, it is now used in this new realm, and then people forget about the history. And so when you make note of it, they get upset. And unfortunately, they're in the wrong there. Um, and also doubly unfortunate, they missed the point. The point is no one cares about her hair. The point is that you've had a game for however long that you have no black women in, and the sequel has one black woman that we think is going to be a playable character. We don't know, but then you include black culture, you include black hairstyles, you include black music, uh, emotes, whatever the case may be, but you won't put a black woman in the game. And your reasoning for it is piss poor. So, in that sense, people were a little felt the way. I get it, the MMA thing, but that's an aside. That's not really the main point. Moving on, though, I just wanted to address that. Moving on,
Well, thank you for like explaining that more. I didn't think about it that way.
no, no, see, the reason why, and the reason why this is easier for me to do than it is on Twitter, outside of it being Twitter, is the fact that I know you aren't trolling. I know you aren't being disrespectful. I know you aren't trying to be whatever the case may be. People are very guarded. People are very protective. I want to say Ash actually had to lock her account after this. She's recently
Oh
opened
yeah.
it, but she had to lock her account because of, like you said, people didn't read the article. They just saw the picture. There's a point that she was trying to make. She even talked about the history. people missed it because this is not the first article she talked about that. And when people kind of bring it to her attention, maybe they're not trying to be mean or they're not trying to troll. She doesn't know that. Not necessarily speaking for her, but I just from my experience, you don't know that. So you're automatically on defense and it doesn't go right. Um, and it's understandable. Just over the years, this is what's been happening. Um, so it's no point. It's no not sorry, not no point. It's not difficult to kind of have these conversations in this fashion because I know you, right? Um, with that being said, I also know how you feel about representation when it comes to people who look like you, um, which is how we kind of hit it on Miles and whatnot. With what she says, right? What she's saying in her article, liking that over to the Spider-Man game, how do you feel about representation just period?
Like it's something we need to have. The fact is, me being a Puerto Rican, like there's a lot that people don't think about in media itself. There's not a lot of Puerto Ricans. They kind of get left behind for other Spanish people. Um, like a lot of times we get kind of left behind. We got J Lo, Fat Joe, and Ricky Martin. That's about what we get. And then in media we got some like West Side Story, and yeah, I've seen that more times than any human should have seen that. Um, so there's just really not a lot of representation. So from the second Miles was released, even with that, there's things I love about him. The fact that he's black and then half Puerto Rican, although most people tend to push aside Puerto Rican, like they just forget about it completely. And to most people, he's just a black character. To me, I stick more to his Puerto Rican side. Like in Miles Morales, there is so much that they put in that just isn't in every anything else. Um, Even in one of the first times they show the game, you see him swinging across, going back home, and on the fire escape, there's a Puerto Rican flag draped across the fire escape, and that's something you almost never see just in a video game alone, a Puerto Rican flag. And they're doing like a Puerto Rican event outside. It's something you never see. Just great music, all of that. When you actually start playing the game during the Christmas section, you have the opportunity to actually pick your music, and there's some Spanish artists with Spanish um Christmas songs. I was like, oh, that's cool. What really got me, I spent way more time here because I was just taking everything in.
Yo, I did the same thing. Also, I'm also Puerto Rican. I'm half Mexican, half Puerto Rican.
I did not know
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yeah, most people don't. They assume that I'm just Mexican. I'm also just really quick introduction. I usually speak more about being Mexican than I do being Puerto Rican, only because I'm Puerto Rican on my mom's side and I'm not really close to that family at all. So like I barely met one of my aunts on that side who's like, oh my God, like she's Puerto Rican and she's like, oh, you guys haven't eaten so many of these foods or done so many of these things. Like it's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, like, we just didn't do a lot on that side of the family. But yeah, Miles is awesome. And I also spent, I want you to go on and I'll just jump in where I see fit. But I also spent way too long in that apartment with my Puerto Rican brother, just looking for like Puerto Rican stuff, just like seeing the little details, what they threw in there, what they didn't. And yeah, it was really cool.
Nice.
That's awesome that you're actually Puerto Rican. Is this, like I said, that part of the game, so you'll understand this part of the game more than other people will. So the part that got me and what really made me like stop in my tracks to take everything in besides the music was the food on the table. They took so much time just modeling everything and making it look Spanish. Like just empanadas, arroz con gandules, and um, pasteles, and all of that is customary Spanish food. Like I can't, like in my freezer every year, every year, there's about 70 to 80 pasteles just ready to go for
Oh yeah,
Christmas.
also the fact that they had so much food for like not a lot of people, I was like, yep, this is like this is Puerto Rican culture. What I thought you were gonna mention with like the thing that got you was the frogs that they had. Those little like where you get the little like it's like a little stick thing where you can make that frog noise. Like they
Yeah.
had some of those like throughout the apartment, which I was like, yep, that's also a very Puerto Rican thing. And it was cool too, being able to, even though I just said I'm not super connected to my Puerto Rican side, I'm still like, I'm obviously Puerto Rican, so I know a little bit. And it was nice. It's always cool when you are from like the background that's being represented, which is why it's so important to like have diverse, writers and critics that can come in and speak more to those cultural elements and their accuracy or what feelings they elicit, because like there are certain things that I can pinpoint as like, oh, this might be excessive, or this isn't excessive, it's actually accurate. And I think like the amount of flags they had is very accurate, because like normally, and like I think with other cultures it might have been overkill, but like in Puerto Rican culture, like Puerto Ricans love that flag, and there's like a lot of Puerto Rican pride, and like there's like Puerto Rican pride parades like huge in Chicago, so it just felt so authentic in so many like different ways. And like I have so many good things to say about that game, and even like the use of Spanish too on the phone. I just noticed all of that, and I loved it all so much. And I really appreciate that. To your point, it's true that a lot of people think of Miles Morales as like Black Spider-Man, which I think is valid in its own ways too. Like obviously we're going to connect more with whatever maybe that cultural touchstone is for us. And I do think usually the in defense of like that assumption is like when you look at Miles, you see a Black character. Most people will assume that he's Black. Like most people wouldn't think he's Puerto Rican, which is also I think relevant to how we perceive people in real life. So I don't have too much beef with that, but I do like that they kind of took that extra time to add in those elements, because it is true that like a lot of people do default that way to perceiving Miles, but like that is a big part of his culture and like his mom's role in the city. And I think they like did a great job balancing at least that aspect of his character, or highlighting that aspect of his character, to like speak to all the cultural elements of Miles.
Yeah, it's great. It's like I fell in love with the game because of that. The other thing I wanted to mention was about his mom. His mom is possibly my favorite character in the game, even outside of Miles. Because the first thing it was during that Christmas thing, she sounds like my mom. When I was a kid, listening to my mom talk on the phone, it literally took me back to like 1997, and she sounds exactly like her. And it was she sounds like just basically every Puerto Rican woman. She sounds like my grandmother. She sounds like all of them. So like really drew me in. And then what I really wanted to mention, what made me love it even more, is the fact that she's a Puerto Rican woman. She's not a single mom. She's not a drug addict. She's not pregnant. She's not just a stay-at-home mom. She's running for office and winning and fighting corporations. It's a Puerto Rican woman that actually has something you can look up to. Like even if you watch movies, what are the Puerto Rican women doing? If you take J.Lo and Enough, she's getting her ass beat and she has to fight back. Or they're just a girlfriend that doesn't really defend their man, where it's an issue, or they're a drug addict, or they're pregnant and this is kid number 36. It's always something like that, where they took her and made her something positive. That literally almost brought me to tears. The fact that it was something like that, where like if I could, by the time I have a kid and he's like 10 years old, he's playing that damn game. He's seeing something outside of what typical media shows as Puerto Ricans. Well, chances are he won't see Puerto Ricans in typical media because they just don't exist. Like before Miles, the only other things you had for Spanish people were like Call of Juarez, Mexican drug cartel, Tom Clancy games, which I've been a huge fan of Rainbow Six for the gameplay and not necessarily what's in it. I'm competitive, so I like the games. But even from like Rainbow Six 3, Spanish terrorists, Rainbow Six 3 Black Arrow, Spanish terrorists, Rainbow Six Vegas, Spanish terrorists, and then like even if you take like what they say, it's like developers just assume that nobody playing the game is Spanish or understands what they're saying. If you play like Resident Evil 4, they'll actually say like behind you in Spanish and think you don't understand it. In Tom Clancy games is the same thing. They'll say behind you or he's over there, and they're like, okay, so I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna shoot him in the face. Like I understand what she's saying. So it's just the how all of that what you typically see in terms of Spanish people. Like there's some decent examples, like Dom in Gears of War. He's good, but of course they kill him off. So that's one thing. Of course he has to die because his whole family died, and they had to show that. Um, it's just like you just don't see, and not to mention he's also only Mexican because you could only be Mexican, Colombian, or from some fictional Spanish place. Like just the fact that that was there in Miles Morales just meant so much.
That's that's dope. I actually so Miles, I've like read up on him a lot, like prior to the game, and just had known his character for a very long time. So I always knew that like his dad was, black, his mom was Puerto Rican, and so that scene, interesting enough, was really big for me as well. But for different reasons, and it wasn't to necessarily set aside his Puerto Rican side, because a lot of that stuff was normal to me. Like my best man at my wedding. Granted, he's not Puerto Rican. I know he's Dominican, but there's a lot of similarities there in how his mom was speaking, like you were saying, and having that amount of food and all this other stuff, that was familiar to me. But then also noticing a lot of the black things that he was doing, um, that isn't typically allowed either, or is not you know held up to a high regard. And not even just that scene, but like when he goes out into the neighborhood and he's helping people and how they respond to him, how they talk to him, um, was very relatable as well. Even like just being outside of New York, just being on the East Coast or wherever the case may be, the things that we say, the slang that we use, the clothes that we wear, it was a lot of that in the game. He even had waves. Like that's not something you see. A lot of our I know we talked about hair before, but like a lot of our hairstyles in games are trash. They don't do a good job with our hair at all. All we get is afros, fam. Afros and baldies. That's it. He he
Yeah.
he
Or
was
in arms, your hair's a weapon.
yes, that's oh my God. Just really
Wow.
bad in terms of representation with hair. I mean, to the point where there's a whole, The Sims 4 is better now, but there was a whole like mod community on, just getting, skin color right and getting hair right and just so other people can actually play as these characters, right? And that's where you can create your own character, and that's just bad.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the worst thing. Character creators I usually can't stand because for the love of God, I cannot find my skin tone at all.
yeah, it's
At
bad.
all.
It's really
It's
bad.
either because you have two things, either white and a terrible excuse for black, or you have white, decent black, and then those are the only two colors. You're either white or black. There's usually no decent shade of brown.
I'm
There-
guessing that the games are using the one drop rule, and that's their excuse.
Well, one of the things that I've heard at least was that it's outside of developers or publishers, I should say, saying that it's hard to model women for whatever reason, but the idea that like your main audience is white, and so they're
yeah,
thinking that they need a white male to sell whatever, and that's not true. It's just not true. The numbers have
Mhm.
flip-flopped for years. There's more women playing than men right now. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's been proven that they will buy a game regardless of who's on the cover. But for whatever reason, there's this idea that we can't be represented. Or if we're doing so, it's you're
super
pandering.
stereotypical.
You're you know what I mean? And so like, going all the way back to Ash's article, um, in terms of like what is safe, what isn't safe, and just us being able to see ourselves. If you're gonna give me a character creator, I should be able to make myself. Like there was
Mhm.
a question that was on Twitter. I think I actually asked the question. I did a survey, and I was like, uh, all my people of color out there, if you had a character creator in a video game, who do you make? Do you make yourself, or do you make some like elf dragon whatever, like do you make like a fantasy character or do you make yourself? And majority of the people, I think like 90% was like we make ourselves. And it's not because they just want to play as themselves, like in the sense of like I can't be anything else. It's because in other games they aren't able to see themselves.
Mhm.
Like that was the main reason that I got, outside of just like role playing, was that the other games don't do a good job of depicting us. So at the very least, with a character creator, I can make myself, and kinda, if they give me good options, I can kind of make myself,
Mhm.
and that's really weird now. Like before, I understand, but nowadays, that's really really weird that that's still the case. Um, so when I saw, like I said, when I saw the article, I thought it was great. I thought that she hit on a lot of good points, and I I I want to feel like everyone else felt. When I played Miles, I actually reviewed it for Game Skinny. Shout out Game Skinny. Um, it was one of the best reviews I've ever written, and it was because I was so impassioned by what it was I was seeing. Like easily my favorite game of the year. And the game is great. It's not just because Miles is Miles, but it's also because Miles is Miles. I saw myself. I saw Jaime.
Mhm.
I saw my friends who are Dominican. I saw all of that in that game, and the stories and the things that they had. It was more me. It was more of my side of Marvel, my side of that world, and that was pretty dope because majority of it was positive, and not positive in a like we can't do no wrong type of thing. I'm not going to spoil the villains, but in an idea that like we can exist with all these other magical characters and it'd be totally okay. Like totally okay. Like no one's hurt because we were represented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah.
Well, they
Oh,
did
go
have
ahead.
that big. They did have that big controversy for like a week with the BLM wall. That
Well,
was so
that
stupid.
my beef with the BLM wall is that it was lip service, and
Yeah,
it was. And honestly, in my review, I talk about this. The creator of Miles actually gets this wrong a lot too, where they depict Miles, but they don't depict reality for Miles. In that he's a black superhero, there's you're going to deal with some racial stuff. And there's one
yeah,
scene in the game that actually touches on that when he's being cornered by those they're not police, they're like hired security. I forgot the name of the group, but he saves everybody on the bridge. The security comes in and they're trying to arrest him, and people are taking out their phones and they're kind of like, hey, he didn't do anything, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw that and it was like they kind of like put their toe in terms of these issues, and then that was it. And I understand not wanting to have everything have to be a message or have to be whatever, but if you're going to put something like Black Lives Matter in there, then let's not be afraid to address certain things. And I kind of left it at that. I wasn't upset. I didn't dislike the game or like anything, but you have to be mindful of the things that you put in. Um,
Mhm.
because of what was happening in the world, just putting that in there and not saying anything about it, not doing much else with it, it makes me feel like or I get the feeling that's similar to what I get when certain companies say that, and then you find out behind the scenes that nothing has changed, they haven't done anything, or that they mistreat black people. Like it was lip service. It looks good because of the world right now. It doesn't. You actually didn't do anything with it. So that was a little bit of some friction there, but for the most part, they did an amazing job uh, with the game, as you can attest, Jamie. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, all that being said, Tess, I didn't hear what you thought of the article.
I actually liked the article. First of all, it was kind of short and sweet, and I completely agree with everything that she is saying. And I know that we're talking about the article and the Spider-Man game, which I didn't play, but but obviously I do love Miles Morales, and the movie was pretty damn awesome. But as for the article, I 100% agree. I do feel like white women are the default when we remove white men. And it's always like there's this order of things to make people comfortable. It's like, well, if we remove white men, then the next thing to make people comfortable is to use white women. And then all of a sudden that is progressive. Like all of a sudden that's counted as, see, we're diverse. And that's not true. And I was actually watching that show, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, and I mentioned this to Kenny. Like, I have issues with the show in a general sense, but I feel like sometimes there's this desire to call out, okay, well, this is some of the things that white women go through or whatnot, talking about things that are typically dominated by white men. And it's like, okay, there's a white women are breaking into certain areas or something like that. And that's wonderful and that's great. But it, when I think sometimes when we look at those stories and we're talking about, okay, well, these white women are breaking into these things, it kind of also draws up that this white women diversity thing, it's not congruent to everybody else of color struggle. And it's kind of like that same conversation where people talk about how white feminism is not black feminism. And so everything that I was reading in the article really, really kind of just stuck out and pointed at me. I did that. I liked the line where she said, it's so funny how black hairstyle pops up before a black woman does in this game. I laughed at that. I just thought that was funny. I thought it was really quippy. I like her wording. I think she's a great writer. And so I truly enjoyed the article. I thought it spoke to me because I do think that the media, the industry has a way of trying to diversify things just by using white women as protagonist and doesn't seem to even work hard to try to diversify. I mean, I mentioned Mulan earlier, and that is literally a movie with Chinese actors that was written by a bunch of white people. It's not an interesting movie. It's extremely boring. And I even watched this video of this girl who's just like, there's really not a lot of Chinese stuff in this movie. It's like they got as many Chinese things they could get and put it all into one movie, and nothing's actually correct. But anybody else who doesn't know anything about Chinese culture would just be like, oh, yay, great, it's Chinesey. And that's fucked up. So, yeah, I felt away. I read the article. I thought it was cool. And going back to what I was mentioning about Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, you have this white woman who is the lead character who's breaking into an industry where there aren't many women at all. This is a coding industry. And, you know, first season is whatever. I think it does what it does. But I feel like in the second season, they actually broached the topic of racism in the tech world, and they spent a couple of episodes on it. And the truth is that was way more important, or just so much more deep than any issues this little redheaded white girl's going through. And I just felt like watching this show and the kind of like this article, especially because the picture in the article, the first picture is the redheaded white woman. And these are all games I don't play, by the way. You guys know I only play 3 games, and none of them are these. So just wanted to mention that. So I don't know who these people are, but I just felt like watching this show. I don't know why I keep watching it, but watching the show and seeing how this idea of this white woman protagonist and her breaking into a white male dominated field, and then they go into this segment of about people of color in tech are treated, are not listened to, how racist the tech industry is just by technology in and of itself. Basically, how people of color face so many issues in the medical world because, the pulse oximeter or whatever is supposed to, it was created to read white people's hands or people who are light, and it doesn't read well on people who are dark skinned, the same way that automatic soap dispensers don't dispense soap for Black people, or how you could be washing your hands on those automatic faucets and they don't turn on when you put your hand under it.
And I literally used to have this problem all the time at work. And I'd be like, why won't the faucet work for me? And a white woman could literally walk up and get her hands washed. Like, what do I have to do to get my hands wet?
Wait, we're discriminated in the bathrooms too? That's
In the
terrible.
bathrooms too.
That
Come
is
on now.
terrible. That reminds me though, your this was something that was said to me, a friend of mine who's Asian. When I was lamenting about the show Them and how it was bad for us, right? And he was saying that what's a good thing out of that is he was saying that you're able to have this conversation with other black people about content made by black people that might not be good for black people. He was saying that we're still in this, we as an Asian people are still in
Yeah.
the stage where we kind of have to accept everything because that's all we get. So I'm wondering, does that also translate to you, Janet, and you, Jamie, in the sense that if you were to get something that there's a Puerto Rican protagonist and maybe it was not the best light, would that be something where you feel like, dang, I don't want to champion this, but at the same time, if I do, we might get something else? Um, for us, I'll paint a quick picture. Like black exploitated films or like films like Amos and Andy, the show. Um, where it was originally blackface and then they had black actors actually go and act, and some black people liked it because they were like, this is the only thing we have on TV that's actually us, even though it's poor. Now we don't have that. We can actually say, oh, this film versus this show is bad or good regardless because we have other avenues to see ourselves. Do you think that's something that's a dilemma with Puerto Ricans as well, where or Mexicans, where they can't necessarily rally against a depiction of them because this is all they have?
Yeah, that's like you gotta fight against it because if you're okay with that, that's all you're ever gonna get. You need something.
Yeah,
You
I'm here for dragging everything all the time, and it doesn't even have to. And I guess it's like kind of a little bit my ethos of like being a critic. Like part of like why I do things the way I do them is I think it's important to be analytical about media, and sometimes it has like really big important social reasons for that analysis, and sometimes it's just like for the sake of delving deeper into a text, and that's kind of the ethos of everything I do for like making my content. But yeah, like I think it's actually more important to be critical when you don't get a lot, because it's like, look, this is all we had. It needs to like be good at some point or somewhere. I think the number one tension though that comes up in my experience, I'm curious to hear what other people think from like, we have a lot of different backgrounds here on the show, but like for me, a point of frustration is I think the feeling that I've engaged with like different people in like the Latinx community that give me the vibe that they feel like we need to be on the same page all the time, and that if we're not on the same page, we have to be like literally against each other. And while sometimes I think that can be true with certain depictions, I don't think it needs to be at all. I was really critical of Tostarina in Super Mario Odyssey, where it's like the fake like Mexican world, right? Where it's like, oh, it's like, it's some people are like, it's fun, it's colorful, it's celebrating Latino culture. And for me, like it had elements of that, but also like there's a moon you get for putting on a mariachi costume, which is not even a mariachi costume, like a poncho and a sombrero and like strumming a guitar. And it felt very much like white person on Halloween and at the college frat party to me, and it didn't sit right with me. And I wrote a lot about it, and a lot of people, there were some people that were like, oh, for me, like I'm Mexican and I like this and this was cool, and I'm like, that's fine, and like that can also be fine, like, and that's something I also try to address whenever I do do a formal article or like any type of formal content. But it doesn't mean that we can't have that conversation. And the reality is like, and that's why we need more representation too. Like there's not going to be a depiction of a Mexican woman or Puerto Rican woman or Mexican Puerto Rican woman or whoever that's gonna satisfy me and literally everyone who's like me. That's not gonna happen, nor does it need to, but that's why we need more. Like if we have enough, we don't have to, one character doesn't have to carry the weight of being this perfect representation if you have just more representation. So I think, bringing up the idea of like a lot of times in media and games specifically, you see like, the gangbanger or the teen mom or whatever. The problem isn't that you have those characters. Like that's a very real thing that people experience. Like that's fine, but we have that 80 times over we need something else. Like, it's not because your depiction is wrong, it's just because it's creating and adding to like the monolith of what we see when we see these characters.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
tiring.
like those things exist for a reason, because like you said, they are actually there. Even most stereotypes do have some type of something that you see a lot. So yeah, they could be there, but there's also the other side of it. So going back to Miles, Spanish superhero, all for it, all day. So yeah, I agree with what you were saying there.
It's rough. I'm hopeful that we are able to get more representation, um, and good representation. I don't want we could be divided on a lot, but I think that's one thing that everyone kind of agrees on. Well, at least us, in the sense that we want more of us and different types of us all across the board. Whether it's black women, gay women, straight women, trans women, whatever the case may be, but then also of other races, ethnicities. I think I said that right. We want all of that because there's interesting stories um, that we can get that we are missing. There's also perspectives that we're missing,
Mhm.
and people want to see themselves, which is interesting
Yeah.
because you would think that there's this huge market of people that would buy your stuff if you just kind of like allow them to have some type of say in it. Like Miles
Yeah.
did really freaking well. The Black Panther film did really freaking well. Like unheard of well because
I
we
actually
want to see
watched a
us.
video on that today. I watched a video on that today. That cracked me up. Like where where they were like, "Oh, so you think this is going to make us a lot of money?" No, no, this movie won't make us a lot of money. No, no, no. But just go ahead and put it out anyway. And it's like highest grossing film of all time.
Right.
Like
It's because you have
Wakanda forever.
you have people who aren't who would like to see this story who are white or Asian American or whatever the case may be, and you have all the black people who like flooded the theater, like
Hmm. Intentionally, though. I mean, this is when I'll go back to even kind of like, what I said a long time ago when I was talking about this. It was intentional. Like, I had groups of friends who we were like, we'll go see the movie over and over and over and over again with the sole intention of making this movie make as much money as it. I don't care if I spend $150 on tickets. I will keep doing it because my sole intention is to make this Black superhero movie the number one movie. I have stock in this. There's something at stake here. And it was something that we knew was going to be good. So if it's like we have a dollar, okay? We have money. We have the means, and we can prove that our representation matters and that, capitalism will win at the end of the day with our own dollars. We can speak with that, and we spoke with that at the box office for Black Panther, and we'll continue to speak at it when something comes that it's worth that. Like when we're like, look, we will support this. So dude, didn't Kodak release? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going back in time here. But Kodak had a whole like news story about how black people had money and they were like, we need to make film that picks up the deep coloring of black people's skins and people who are just not white so that we can get their money. They had a whole ad thing that was like the Negro dollar.
I
Dude,
remember that. That's crazy. Yeah,
I gotta look that up.
that's I do remember that. I do remember that.
yeah.
But that was, I mean, and that happens a lot in technology just behind the scenes. Like
Hmm.
in terms of like, oh, we could get this audience or we could get, we can gravitate over here because there's money on the table. And that's not
Hmm.
obviously that's not our aim. Our aim is to be represented.
Be
But
represented and have good content.
what makes it so like jarring that it doesn't happen more often is the fact that there's money on the table. Like just
Hmm.
just sitting there. Like, yeah. Anywho, this has been awesome. This has been really cool. I am glad we were able to do this. Um, just being able to kind of get that off our chest and express ourselves a little bit in a space that doesn't require censorship, a space that doesn't require us to kind of bend, any which way, because that kind of happens a lot on Twitter. Even though I honestly don't care, but it tends to happen. You tend to pull back a little bit because you don't want to necessarily burn all the bridges immediately, or to
Mhm.
necessarily, you don't want people to take your words out of context. That happens a lot. Or just to deal with
Mhm.
trolls, right? You don't want to necessarily have to do that. So being able to talk about these things, highlight the positives, discuss the negatives is solid. Is really solid. Thank you, Janet, for joining us. I know you're
Yeah,
mad
thanks for having
busy.
me.
I know yeah, anytime. I know you're super busy, and I'm happy that you announced you're taking a break. Um, Shout out to Jaime for hanging out with us again. Always a pleasure. Um, because we've been trying to talk about Miles for forever. So I'm happy
Yeah.
we were able to do that and to get you on. Everybody who's listening, feel if you're listening on YouTube, because that seems to still be popular, feel free to subscribe, hit that notification bell. We are getting a lot of people on Google Podcasts. I didn't realize how many people use Google Podcasts versus like Apple or whatever. I know Apple is still dominant in like Spotify, but a lot of people are listening on Google, so shout out to you. Shout out to people in our home state for listening. I see you. I'm looking at the analytics. Awesome, awesome stuff. Um, we have a lot of new content coming up, a lot of interesting topics to talk about. Hopefully, you enjoy. Let us know if you have anything else that you're interested in us talking about. Whether it's like a new movie coming out, a new video game, comic books. We haven't talked about anime, which is shocker, right? Um, we will be talking about anime soon and manga and all that good stuff. Aside from that, yeah, I think we're good. I think that's it for housekeeping.
Alrighty. Well, Janet, again, it was awesome having you. Jamie, it was awesome having you again. You guys are welcome back anytime. This was a great night. I think that we all had a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that we got to talk about representation again. It's really important that we have these discussions. So thank you all for listening. We really appreciate you. This is that time in the show when I tell you to do the same things that I tell you every week, which is wear your mask, wash your hands and your butts and your faces, but just not in that order.
Yeah, don't do
But
that.
yeah, don't. And, wear your mask and be a kind person, hashtag don't be a dick. We're still working on the merch, guys. Anyway, go out into the world, do what you do, take your vacations, don't get overworked like me and all of us. And yeah, just enjoy life. The weather's getting nicer, so anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Stay safe, stay gracious. Remember to not listen to the BS. See through it. Use your eyes, do your research. Have a great night, everybody. We're so happy you stayed with us this whole time. See you next week. Bye bye.